G'day, I'm Jacques. I'm the CTO at a studio called DOTDOT, and I am just going to quickly share my screen and just go through a kind of rundown of what DOTDOT does. We have some previous work that's kind of relevant to STEM and that kind of thing. My background is in creative technologies, so I am involved in more of the technical side of things, but as a studio, we do also do design and things like that. Probably one of my favorite projects that we've worked on is this one called the Climate Converter. That was a projection map space in Auckland, not in Auckland, but in New Zealand at one of the museums there. And it is about climate change, and it has like two aspects to it. One is a environment where you can take actions, which is as a society, things that we need to do to combat climate change. And then in the middle of the space, there are these two plinths where you can make an individual pledge, which is something which we as individuals can do. And when you do that, it folds up into this kind of origami bird and flies into the space so that you can see your kind of commitment in the shared space along with everyone else. And then there's this bird circling, which represents our combined commitment. And our most recent project, which we're working on at NYSCI as designers in residence, is this one on climate resilience. So this is working on a co-located virtual reality experience. So having multiple people in the same space, wearing virtual reality headsets and working together to basically explore what actions we can take to improve the resilience of our communities to climate change. And we've been working with a number of the explainers. We've taken a bit of a pause during the pandemic and are really excited to be coming back and continuing this project in the near future. So that's a bit of what we do and what we're doing at the moment, looking forward to in the future. And that'll cover it for me, I think. I think this is one of the things in our particular studio. What we've identified as something that is kind of unique is our makeup of our team. So my co-workers come from backgrounds in film production, documentary filmmaking, but also game design. And one of the previous companies that our CEO ran was a company that made a MMO for kids. So we're kind of trying to bring these game design ideas into our more traditional design studio practice. And so having this really diverse team is super important for the work that we do, because it's not just about like the graphic design or the user experience, but also how do we bring in some game mechanic elements, and the technologies that we cover are quite diverse as well. So we'll have some which are lots of like physical technologies with camera tracking and projection mapping and things like that. But then other times it will be more web-based technologies and like online interaction. One of our projects, I didn't actually mention in my slides, but we had this one, which was a combination of virtual reality on a bike with a web interface. So you would like design a road layout on an iPad through a web interface, and then you would bike that design on the physical bike to get a sense of what it was like. And so this incorporated like all the things. It had virtual reality, it had a physical device to track the motion of the bike, and it had a web interface. So the kind of teams which you need to cover all of those technologies need to be quite diverse. The one which immediately jumps to my mind is the concept of like developing a hypothesis and then coming up with a test to prove or disprove that hypothesis and then running that test. which is just as a concept is very relevant in many industries and areas. Because, for example, from a programming perspective, as soon as your software doesn't do what you're expecting it to do, the first thing you're doing is thinking about, okay, so why do I think it's not doing what I want it to do? And that's your hypothesis. And then you're like, how do I check if that is the thing that is the reason that it's not doing what I want it to do? And that'll be like the test which you run. And then you will test your hypothesis by making that change, or looking at the code for which runs that section to see if that's where the error is. So and then it can apply to other things, but it's kind of as soon as you're trying to figure out why something isn't behaving the way it's meant to, or solving a problem that may come up during your design process, that kind of mindset of being able to come up with a theory and test it is really important.